Cancer, a disease caused by an uncontrolled division of abnormal cells in a part of the body. We all know what it is because chances are we all know someone fighting cancer right now.
Doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter how healthy you are.
This is a random process that can happen to any of us.
In 2025, more than 2 million new cases of cancer will be diagnosed in the United States, and more than 618,000 people will die from the disease. In North Carolina, cancer is the second leading cause of death following heart disease.
What can we do to move forward? Because I don't want to die, so what do we need to do?
Doctors say the disease that destroys so many lives is getting younger.
Where we've seen patients that are far too young to have these diseases.
So I've seen folks with these types of cancers even in their 20s.
The WRAL documentary unit set out to investigate who this is happening to.
Does not run in your family?
Nope, not at all. And they did genetic testing when I was diagnosed, and everything came back normal.
You're looking around and you're the youngest person by 30, 40 years sometimes.
People say it all the time, I'm healthy, I was working out, I was in the gym, I was doing everything right. How did this happen?
Well, one of the things that went through my mind is why?
And you have to believe that there's an environmental influence.
Is there something in the diet? Is it associated with low fiber?
So you really think food is a big one?
It's hard to ignore.
And what's being done in North Carolina to save lives.
You think to yourself, like, what is our common denominator? Why are we all getting it? What is it?
This is Diagnosis Young, the new face of cancer in North Carolina.
You run all the time still?
Yes.
How often?
More than I should. Probably like 4 to 5 times a week I run.
You run more than you should?
Yeah, probably.
You need to take a break.
Yeah.
But why do you do it?
The biggest thing for me is mental health. Also being an athlete for my whole life, I need something where I just get outside and just kind of push my body to the limit. My name is Hope Reynolds, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer at 21. This is my life. This is my life over the last 4 years.
The first thing you notice in 25-year-old Hope Reynolds' apartment is this giant picture wall, like an Instagram feed come to life.
This is at our white coat ceremony. This is my roommate and I. This one was at the Duke Notre Dame football game, and we were on TV. And my friends and I were so excited that we were on TV. We thought we were like famous.
But unlike Instagram, it's not just the highlights.
So this is my tattoo and my mom's tattoo.
Tell us what the middle says there.
It says, pray big, worry small. But I just loved it because it's kind of how we live our lives. Yeah, and I feel like cancer has brought on that mindset.
Tell me about your diagnosis. So tell me about that time in your life.
It was starting my senior year of undergrad at Hope College in Holland, Michigan. I was a swimmer, so we were just getting changed one day in the locker room and had noticed some changes in terms of my right breast. And my roommate, she kind of pointed it out, and not in a bad way, but we kind of made fun of it. We were like, oh my God, that's so weird. Kind of ignored it for a couple of months, and then ended up just getting really sick towards the end of August. Really bad migraines, was not able to eat anything, and just throwing up everything that I put into my body. So I called my mom, and she asked if I had done a self-exam, which I had never done before because I was 21 at the time and didn't think that that was something you even had to do that young. So when we hung up, I did a self-exam and I found a lump. About a week later, I met with my primary care physician, and they wanted me to get a mammogram done. And I called the place where I was going to get the mammogram done, and they said that they wouldn't give me a mammogram because I was so young. And they were like, okay, well, let's get an ultrasound then. And I still remember the person who read my ultrasound came in and said that she saw something that was concerning, but the odds of it being cancer were so low because of my age. But they wanted to do a biopsy just to be sure. And that was when I was diagnosed with stage 3B breast cancer. It was invasive ductal carcinoma, and it had already spread to one of the lymph nodes on my right side.
Invasive ductal carcinoma is the most common type of breast cancer, accounting for more than 80% of all breast cancer cases in the United States. Of new invasive breast cancer cases in the U.S. were diagnosed in women under the age of 50.
My first thought was, I don't have time for this. I was beginning my senior year of undergrad, so we were just starting our swim season. I have the most amazing parents in the world who took on all the logistics for me. So all I had to do was kind of just show up. After finishing my 8 rounds of chemotherapy, I had a bilateral mastectomy in February of 2021. So I went through 25 days of radiation.
What was the toughest part of all of that?
Out of all of that, I would say the toughest part for me was losing my hair. I didn't want to accept that it was real, but when I had to cut my hair, and then as my hair started to fall out, like there was no way to ignore it anymore. But I will say, I feel like now looking back on it, the hardest part for me has been life after cancer.
What has been the tough part after treatment?
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me has been learning to trust my body again, because I don't understand and there'll never be any reason as to why I got it so young.
So you ran 5 miles a day, super healthy eater, doesn't run in your family. You still got it at 21.
Yeah.
Do you ever think, what could this be? Could it be the food? Could it be, like, do you ever go through those scenarios?
I mean, I've heard all about things like plastic in the environment, makeup, food, stress, all of that stuff. And I find it interesting to learn about, but I don't know if I'll ever really know why I got it at 21.
Tell me about that time in your life, a couple years prior to that, where you were doing
My bodybuilding shows. Yeah. I used to be a personal trainer at a gym. I met this lady and she would tell me all the time, like, I think you should compete. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. You know, I didn't have no kids. I was just kind of doing my own thing. And I did my first show. I did really good. I won because they go by like your group, and that's pretty much like height-wise. So I won that. Fast forward, I moved to Virginia like a couple of years later. I had my daughter. And so I vowed to myself, I'm like, okay, by the time she's 2, I'm gonna step on stage again. And so I stepped on stage and she was 2. And I did really well at that show too. I placed well, but I didn't win or anything like that. It was fun while it lasted. I love watching people do it, and I'll go to shows, but I'm just like, yeah, it was fun while it lasted.
Do you think that experience helped at all with this fight?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yes, for sure. Because it just teaches you, like, you can't give up. You gotta keep going, you gotta keep fighting. So it was just like, all right, Bianca, how bad do you want it? And I definitely took that into my fight, for sure, for sure. My name is Bianca Harvey, and I was diagnosed with colorectal cancer at 34. 2023, in the beginning of the year, I started having like some stomach pains, and so I went to the ER a couple times. They were all telling me the same thing. It may be GERD, which is like some type of stomach issue. This is an unbearable pain. I'm coming home, I'm crying, I'm crawling on the floor, and y'all are telling me y'all think this is just GERD? And then once I got the colonoscopy, that's when I found out, like, oh, I have colorectal cancer.
Colorectal cancer, or colon cancer, is the leading cause of cancer death among men under 50 and the second leading cause of cancer death for women under 50 after breast cancer.
When you got the diagnosis, when they told you the words, what went through your mind?
I try to be optimistic about it because my dad had just beat colorectal cancer in 2019. I was like, okay, if my dad was okay, then I should be okay too. So when we met with my doctor up at Duke, That's when he told, I'm like, why am I having all this pain in my pancreas? Like, I know it's colon cancer, but like, what is going on? And he was like, oh, because it has spread now. So he was like, you're at stage 4. So then that's when it was like a shocker. So we were like, whoa, what do you mean like stage 4? Like, what does that mean?
You are like one of the biggest drops.
I say all the time, my doctor, he was so calm. He was like, it is stage 4, but we do have a plan in place. We are working on some things. And I felt like that gave me some comfort. If he's not like going crazy about it, then I'm not either. Also, I have a daughter, so I was just like, I'm not ready to talk to him about that yet. If we'll cross that bridge if we get there or when we get there. But if he's calm, I'm gonna be calm in this moment.
So tell me, you mentioned your daughter a couple times. Like, how old is she? What's her name?
She is 9. Her name is Kaylani, and she is the light of my life. Good job, good job. She is the main reason, one of the main reasons why I fight so hard to be here every day. There you go. Good job. Good job. Because I don't want to leave her here by herself. Although I have an amazing support system, my parents, my mom, my dad, everybody's wonderful, but it's just nothing like having your mom. It was just like, okay, like, what can we do to get me out of this? Because I don't want to die, so what do we need to do? I was getting chemo every 2 weeks, and I was also coming home with a chemo bag, so I was still being administered chemo for another 46 hours. It was hard, it was hard. I think the worst part was coming off of a treatment and then trying to recover and starting to recover and then going straight back. Chemotherapy was about 18 months, and I just transitioned to immunotherapy in November of last year. And it's been such a big difference.
Bianca is continuing treatment. Her doctor at Duke told me her tumor has shrunk by 50%. She often wonders how and why this happened.
My dad was really like the first person that I knew that had cancer. Like, I never, like, my family, our friends, nobody that I knew had cancer. So even with me dealing with it at 34, for me, it was just like, this is insane. It's like, people say it all the time, I'm healthy, I was working out, I was in the gym, like I was doing everything right, But I just think, GMOs, them putting things in our food, what we wear, what we put in our hair, what we put on our nails, genetics too, but I do think environmental has a lot to do with it.
Your age, though. I mean, do people say you're so young, you're too young? Is that something you hear a lot?
I do. And, when they tell me that, I think about the babies that are going through it. But I think about the little ones that are going to radiation and treatment, and some of them that make it, some of them that don't make it. I follow a lot of people on social, I'm sorry. But I follow some people on like social media. So this was Luna. This is a young lady that I had started following when I first got cancer. She had cancer, and she might have been 11 or 12, and she was doing really good, and then it came back, and she was trying to fight it, but she didn't make it. So when people tell me that I'm young, I think about them, because they're babies, you know what I'm saying? And it's just hard. It's very, very hard.
But what do you do? Just like
you push forward and you have faith, and you just keep, just keep moving forward.
And deserve the break,
yes.
obviously.
Have faith in your doctors, have faith in yourself, because I feel like it's my fight, but it's our fight.
So everybody knows me as Coach Matt, right? Like, that's my name at the rink.
You guys can pop out. We're gonna be far side. We just got one corner, one group. A little sharper, big push.
Obviously as an athlete, I'm always trying to encourage
The workhorse in the house.
and teach my athletes to be courageous and be brave
Make sure you're switching your hand at the same time as your feet and a little sharper.
and to be responsible. And
More curve, curve.
I very often say that my mission as a hockey coach is to turn young men into leaders. I think that's my ultimate mission.
How'd your tournament go?
And so cancer's just given me kind of an extra arm to that mission. My name's Matt Cross, and I was diagnosed with testicular cancer at 36 years old. So I'm originally from Canada. I grew up in Toronto, and I have coached youth hockey players my whole life.
What's up?
And in 2011, I moved down here to take a job with my current employer, starting this life in Raleigh and kind of exploring everything that Raleigh has to offer. My dad was actually down here on a trip from Canada. He was going through some things with his heart. And so my dad was trying to connect some of the dots. And so I actually promised him that I would put on his Apple Watch to take the EKG reading on your Apple Watch. And I did that, and it came back abnormal. And that was really strange. And so at the end of the trip, I promised my dad that I would go to a GP to get my heart condition checked out. I had a lump on my testicle that was there for a number of months, and typical guy, I figured I'd go to the doctor when I had a real reason to go to the doctor, and was probably a little bit scared and ashamed. And so while I was getting my physical, I said, hey, why don't you check out this lump that I have? It ended up being cancerous. I was stage 2B. So stage 2B means that the cancer originated in the testicle, but then moved up into my stomach, so into a closer region. Testicular cancer is the #1 most common cancer for men ages 15 to 35. Standard treatment for testicular cancer is an orchiectomy, so they remove the testicle that is cancerous. What's incredible is chemotherapy with testicular cancer is pretty much a medical miracle. A guy named Dr. Einhorn kind of came up with the chemotherapy regimen that has now taken the cure rates to almost 98% if it's caught early. And so I went through 3 cycles of chemo. You're going 5 days in a row for about 5 or 6 hours, and then you have a 2-week break, and you repeat that 3 times.
Beautiful.
And so when I got diagnosed, it was like, oh, Coach Matt's got cancer. And so that news obviously spread pretty quickly. I had people that came and sat with me during treatment. A lot of the local hockey teams taped their sticks purple and put ribbons on their jerseys. And so how blessed was I that I had this huge community and network that kind of rallied around me. And so it was really a big part of my fight was I can't let these people down. I have to, show these people what you do.
And I'm sure that plays in the nonprofit.
That's exactly kind of how the nonprofit became an idea. It's called the Raleigh Testicular Cancer Foundation. Our slogan for our charity is check your acorns. And that's kind of like a clever, cute way to encourage men and young people to perform self-checks. We're trying to tear down stigmas so that men book that doctor's appointment and that annual physical. And obviously, as a career coach, there's an arm to all of these kids and young people that I work with at the rink. And when I went through cancer, I think I kind of became a cancer life coach. As a new cancer patient, the first thing you kind of look up online is you see all these stories of people ringing the bell and being in remission. And so I know when I first went in to start treatment, I looked around and I'm like, there's no bell in here. And the story goes, when I came in for my very last day of treatment, they had installed a bell. And so I was able to have a celebration and ring it. It was a really important milestone. I say that too, as a cancer patient and survivor, you learn to celebrate all the wins. The small ones, the big ones, all the little things become such a bigger deal.
If you have cancer or not though, right?
If you have cancer or not. I'm just truly filled with so much more gratitude. And how amazing is that? It's like the most amazing thing that ever happened to me was getting sick, which is incredible to say, right? I mean, it's nuts. No pun intended.
Bianca, Hope, Matt, all with the same diagnosis, young. Between 2010 and 2019, early onset cases of 14 different cancers increased in at least one younger age group. That includes colon, breast, uterine, and testicular cancers.
Sure enough, when the data came out, none of us were surprised that these are increasing in incidence.
1 in 5 people diagnosed with colorectal cancer are now under 55.
It's expected to go up by a total of 30% of where we're at now.
More women under 40 are being diagnosed with endometrial or uterine cancer. Rates have gone up more than 3% every year.
Seeing patients that I knew being afflicted with this disease who were younger and had young children, it had a profound effect on me, and I actually changed my research trajectory.
Tell me, when did that happen?
There was 2 patients actually, and they both lived in the neighborhood across the street from me. And one of the patients, her children were about the same age as my children, and we were, all on swim team together, and would see them at the pool. That was probably the moment. And it's hard, it's so hard when you see someone with advanced disease and there's not a lot you can do to help them.
And did she make it?
No, she didn't. But she inspired what we're doing today.
Doctors say cancer isn't just getting younger. The tumors are different.
They tend to be different based on the decade of life.
Even when we are catching it early, there is some anecdotal, not population-based evidence that it does seem more aggressive. That's still early to say, but that's the general trend.
The big question, why is this happening?
What is the molecular reason for this, and what are the environmental or genetic reasons?
We ask ourselves, what's really changed over the last 30 to 40 years as a population in the United States?
Alcohol consumption has declined. We've also seen sexually transmitted diseases declined.
We have a lot less fiber in our diet, and we have a lot more processed foods in our diet.
You have to believe that there's an environmental influence, whether or not it's the air we breathe, the food we eat, the activity that we're engaged in every day.
And that's why I think it's multifactorial. But in part, it is due to the obesity epidemic.
Diabetes, obesity, sedentary lifestyle, all of these kinds of things all play into the convoluted aspect that is ultra-processed foods.
Ultra-processed foods are things in boxes and bags, manufactured, not made in your kitchen. Chips, frozen meals, sugary drinks, filled with chemical preservatives and very little actual nutrition.
I think one really simple way to think of ultra-processed foods is just to go back through where it started. Okay, so it was a potato in the ground, and now it's this sliced, fried, oily chip with a bunch of flavors on it, and it's artificially and naturally flavored. And I don't know, so I'm just gonna eat it, because it tastes great. And that's fine that we do that occasionally, but if it's our mainstay of different meals, it can be a real problem.
We've gone from an environment where you used to eat food that came out of your own garden to an environment where now everything's bought at the grocery store, and a lot of people don't even eat raw foods or vegetables.
Nearly 75% of food consumed in the U.S. is considered ultra-processed. One analysis found a 10% increase in ultra-processed food in your diet could raise your overall cancer risk by 13%. Another study found men who ate the most ultra-processed foods had nearly a 30% higher chance of getting colon cancer.
It's very hard to ignore that.
Dr. Nicholas DeVito at Duke, who believes so much that food is a factor in causing cancer, he wrote an op-ed about it, says it's still a theory. He said more research on more patients is needed, and it's probably a combination of things.
All the processed food, you as a doctor, so what are people supposed to do watching this at home?
So I think there's kind of like the daily choices that are made, and there's also the insistence on why don't I know? Why don't I know how this affects what's in my body? So that lack of communication with the public is something that the public can insist on. The FDA and other organizations in the government work on your taxpayer dollars.
There is groundbreaking research happening in North Carolina to figure out why cancer is getting younger. Duke started a working group called YOGI.
YOGI is the Young Onset Gastrointestinal Cancer Group. The laboratory investigators, the public health, the primary care, radiation oncology, surgical oncology, gastroenterology.
They share data, lab results, and research through a digital biobank to figure out what's causing patients under 50 to get this disease.
So we're able to follow every patient that is diagnosed with a gastrointestinal cancer going forward and going backwards at Duke. And being able to tell my patients that when they come in and they feel alone, like, why am I diagnosed with this? I thought this was a disease that doesn't happen in people my age. No, actually it does, and we're studying it and we're trying to understand why.
Because so much of understanding cancer is realizing it can happen to anyone.
I mean, Bianca is a great example of this because she is someone who is healthy, and this should have never happened to her on paper.
Come in.
Hey, how are you? So good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Bianca's doctor at Duke is Dr. Nicholas DeVito. She remembers when he told her her cancer had spread.
So he was like, you're at stage 4. So then that's when it was like a shocker. So we were like, whoa, what do you mean like stage 4? Like, what does that mean?
And that's when it's stage 4, we largely consider these cancers incurable.
Because he was so calm and he was like, you know, it is stage 4, but we do have a plan in place. We are working on some things. And I felt like that gave me some comfort.
This is a brave new world of immunotherapy.
Bianca was in 2 clinical trials at Duke, the first for over a year. Now she's being treated with immunotherapy only. Unlike chemotherapy, which kills rapidly dividing cells like cancer cells, but also healthy cells too, immunotherapy helps your own immune system recognize and attack cancer cells.
This is from back in November when you started on the trial. Your cancer has shrunk by more than 50%. And we're going to get into this discussion at 2 years where we're taking this 37-year-old at the time, is what she'll be, I think, off of all treatment whatsoever for a previously unresectable or stage 4 colon cancer. And that's a remarkable thing to witness.
Ring the crap out of that thing. Hey.
Those are my favorite stories when people tell me about them ringing the bell, or they're in remission, or, you know, they've been cancer-free for 20 years. Like, that brings me joy and it gives me hope.
Her big goal, her dream, personally, is to ring the bell.
I think she can ring the bell. I do.
Thank you so much. Ooh, nice and warm. Okay, thank you.
When you have a response like Bianca has, where the tumor has continued to shrink over the course of several scans, that her blood work looks great, that she looks great, that she's just continued to feel better the entire time, it's very, very hard to ignore that. But if we can't detect it anymore, it would really, really convince me that, you know, it's time to ring the bell.
Yes, I keep telling everybody, I'm like, we're gonna have the party of the century when I can ring that bell. Like, we are going to have a ball. We are going to celebrate. I don't know, I think I might go into remission first.
So she's not only done this for herself, but she's done this for a lot of other people as well.
I feel like it's my fight, but it's our fight. Like, we all been, you know, we've all just been in this fight together. Lord, please let me be here. Lord, I want to be here. Lord, you know, I don't want to leave my baby here. Like, I want you to know that I want to fight to be here. I'm not just giving up.